Hi, my name is Jackie, and I'm with OzGrav, the ARC Center of Excellence for Gravitational Wave Discovery. Today we are going to talk about Mission Gravity, which is an interactive program you can use to study stellar evolution. So before we get started, just a few questions for you to think about before getting involved in this activity. Think about, why is it important to understand stars? And hopefully some of the answers you'll come up with is that our star provides us with what we need for living on the planet Earth in terms of heat and light and even photosynthesis for our plants. Also, by looking out at stars, we are able to study them at different times in their life cycles, and some stars may even support other planets. And take a couple minutes to jot down what you think you know about stars. This could be information about their size, what they're made up of, how far away they are, anything that you think is important. And then what I want you to do is I want you to think about which of those things describe a star's physical properties, because that's what we're going to investigate today. So our goal in this activity is going to be to use an interactive program to measure a star's temperature, size, mass, and composition, and study how these change over the star's lifetime. So just a few quick science slides here. The outside observables that we get from stars are light, so electromagnetic radiation, as well as heat, a type of the transfer of thermal energy. And from that light, we're able to determine information about the temperature of the star. If we think about all the possible colors of visible light that a star may emit, it also emits in other wavelengths, but just focusing on the visible, sometimes we see red stars, sometimes we see blue stars, or our sun is a yellow star. That color actually tells us information about the temperature. Hotter stars are going to be blue, and cooler stars are going to be red. The bluer light has higher energy, and the red light has lower energy. To study the diameter of the star, the size of that star, we are going to use geometric relationships. So we can look at a star and measure out an angle, and based on how far away we are, we can use geometry in order to determine the size of the star. We've set the computer program to do the geometry for you. Then we're going to use orbital motion to measure the mass of the star. So the gravitational interactions of objects orbiting stars tells us information about the mass of the star. So what we're going to use is we're going to be able to fire little probes at the star in order to determine its mass. And then finally, we're once again going to use the light from the star to study what elements make up the star. So when the light leaves the star, some of certain wavelengths of that light are going to be absorbed by the gases that light interacts with while leaving the star. And these particular elements are going to leave signature dark lines when we spread out the sunlight or the starlight and look at its spectrum. So based off of the position of these black lines, we're able to determine the composition of the star. So what we're going to do is just go over our setup. So first thing you're going to do is grab some paper or an electronic notepad in which you can collect some data. We are going to go to the Mission Gravity portal and walk through that together. To get there, you go to outreach.ozgrav.org/Mission Gravity. And when there, we're going to type Control-Shift-Z to turn on the solutions, and I'll show you that when we get there. And then what you're going to do is you are going to make as many observations as you can in the time that you have to complete this activity. So what I'm going to do is I will show you a quick overview of how we use that. Then we'll come back, sum up some ideas, and then hopefully you'll have some time to investigate on your own. When you get to the Mission Gravity page, it'll look something like this. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to type Control-Shift-Z, and what that's going to do. What that's going to do is it'll bring up this little button that allows us to show the results. We will click that. There's also some audio controls. You can turn those off if you prefer. Now, there is a video in which we go through some of these controls in more detail, but for shortcuts you can hover over each of these symbols to show you what each mouse button will do. I'm going to take this to full screen, and I'm going to read my instructions. I'm going to enable my long-range sensors. I am going to select destination, so I will pick a star. I will engage the warp engine, that will take us there. And then we can use science tools, age, and remeasure. All right, so this has taken us to a star. Now we have various science tools, and we have options for aging the star. So we've got a composition tool. All right, so that will tell us the different elements in our star and their amounts. We have a temperature tool, which will tell us the wavelength of light that is most dominant and the corresponding temperature of the star. We have a mass tool, which will allow us to fire a probe at a star, and it will give us information about how massive it is. The mass here is in terms of the sun, so this is 1 times the mass of the sun. And then, last but not least, we have a size tool, which we will intercept with our star. There we go, scanning, and it will tell us the radius of the star. And here, that information is in radii of the sun. So this is 0.83 times the radius of the sun, so slightly smaller than the sun. Okay. Then what we can do is we can age our star. We click the age button. It gives us a warning that we're too close and we need to move back. We hover over our thruster and use our wheel to move back. We are at a safe distance. And then we are going to try to age again. And we can see that we now have a new age of the star. If we try to age it again, it says that we have to move further back. Now at each of these ages, you can go ahead and remeasure your parameters, your composition, your temperature, your size, and your mass to see how they change. And sometimes you have to get pretty far back from the star in order to evolve it to its next point in life. So here you can see we're still going back. Our safe distance is 202 times the size of the sun. All right, so now we're at a safe distance. We look and we see, it looks pretty small, but if we hit the age button, that's how big the star will be when it evolves to its next age. And then in the final age, we will get a end process for our star, either a planetary nebula or a supernova. Okay. And we are left with something that we really can't see. We are left with a white dwarf. So let's go ahead and get closer to examine it. So right now we're pretty far away. If we get closest, and we can go 3 suns away, and you can see that you can just start to see it. But if we change to kilometers, we can go ahead and see our white dwarf much better. To go to any star, beginning of its lifetime, just hit the warp button, and it'll take you there. All right, I've just hit escape to go back to our regular screen here. So please take the time to investigate and see what kind of relationships you can determine. All right, so now to wrap up, make as many observations you can in your time using this interface, and hopefully what you'll see is that stars can either travel a path and become white dwarfs, neutron stars, or black holes. Those stellar remnants will vary in how big they are, and smaller stars will become white dwarfs, larger stars will become black holes or neutron stars, and hopefully you can see how some of those physical properties change over time. Thanks for taking the time to engage in this activity today.